Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Nostalgic Nerds podcast, where we explore how technology has evolved over the years, from the old school gadgets we once relied on to the cutting edge tech shaping our future. I'm Renee, and I am with my co-host, Marc.
Marc, that's me.
Yeah, and that way they know whose voice is who.
They may not pick up on that, right?
Yeah, right. And today, we're diving into the fascinating journey from the deafening clatter of dot matrix printers to the near silent magic of modern 3D printing. This is the story of how additive manufacturing flipped the entire idea of printing onto its head, transforming everything from home offices to heavy industry. Trust me, this is one that's going to be an eye-opener. So let's rewind the clock and see how we got from here to there. So let's set the scene, Marc. It's 1980. It's one of the largest, most iconic printers of all time, the dot matrix printer. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, you know exactly what I mean. That sound, the rapid fire clack, it was like...
Oh, man. So annoying.
Right? And it was so loud, that machine was usually in its own room, and it had its own case that you would put down over top of it, so you didn't have to listen to it from either like in the room or outside it. It probably was deafening. It might be one of the reasons I have bad hearing. Dot matrix printers.
Might be.
Right?
Do you remember these big giant matrix farms? Did KDA have a farm in the building?
We did not. Pittsburgh might have. We didn't have one.
Yeah.
Because they Pittsburgh would print out all the financial reports, and they would be like this thick on 2 inches thick on dot. Marc can see me, no one else can.
Yeah.
2 inches thick dot, and it would be the GL. Like, it's just a general ledger to see like the budget stuff, right?
Yeah.
But someone was doing that, but like the LA office wasn't doing that for sure.
No, I definitely was in some of the farms. Like at First Data, we had a farm because they were pin printing. You know, the mailers. You had to mail out the pins when you're, for your card, right? What's my 4-digit pin?
Yeah.
And those things were always running, just all constantly. You had to wear earphones, earplugs to go into that place. Is just so loud all the time.
I can't believe. Yeah. Well, the sound of that rapid fire clack of pins and inked ribbon, it was basically the printer version of a jackhammer, right? That noise could double as an alarm clock. It really, even the ones you had at home that would be sitting next to your home PCs, like you couldn't kick it off after 11 o'clock or your parents would yell at you. It was just so loud.
No, you can't get up early at 4 o'clock in the morning and do your homework and print it out.
Nope, you cannot. Yeah. These printers worked by slamming tiny pins into a ribbon, leaving behind little dots that formed letters or images. The result? Faintly fuzzy text and graphics, but back then it felt futuristic. Business loved them because they were cheap, rugged, and perfect for invoices, shipping labels, paychecks, anything like that they need to look pretty. And Marc, the prettier it looked, the more those little pins had to work, and the longer it took to print it, but then the louder it was too, because it was working way harder on making Times New Roman look truly like Times New Roman.
Yeah. Well, they're like little needles, basically, and they shoot and they hit the ink, the ribbon, and then just a micro shift of the head, and then it shoots another needle, and it gets like little tiny little dots. I worked on lots of dot matrix.
It's like impressionist art. The farther away you get, the more it looks normal. But if you're up really, really close, it's just a bunch of crap, right? Like,
you can see it.
That's
dot
draft to me.
Remember, draft mode on these would just run through as fast as possible, and it was like
terrible.
Couldn't really read it. Just kind of. And remember the paper? Do you remember the really wide paper with the little circles on the edge, the perforated things you tear off?
Yeah, because it was feeding through gears, right? It was the gears what was moving the paper, and that's what was making, because every pass is just one line, right? So the tops of all the T's go first, and then the second part of the T's goes second, and it's for the whole sentence,
and
right?
The I,
that's the whole. And by the time you get to the bottom of that line, you've done like probably 13 or 14 passes to make that one sentence. Like, it's so much. I don't know why that was better than typewriter, but here we are, right? And you're right. And those perforated things, you would have to tear them off. And 9 times out of 10, you tore your paper. So now you got a half-torn paper you have to turn in because you had crappy dot matrix printers paper.
Yes.
It
Do you
was
remember the green and do you remember the green and white paper?
Yes, that was almost
Uh,
any corporate entity was doing a general
yes.
ledger on a dot matrix printer had the green and white paper. So it was like lines that you can say every 4 lines, every 4 lines, every four
But it
lines, right?
never lined up with the
Never.
stupid lines.
No, never, not once. Nobody cared. Nobody cared for that to actually really work. Anyway,
Oh man. Well,
it didn't need to look
and
pretty. It just needed to be
it
good,
didn't.
right? I guess. So
But the other use case there was the carbon copy. If you needed three copies, so you had the really thick paper, white and the pink and the yellow, or whatever, and because the needle would hit the pin would hit the ink so hard, it would go through that plus the next two copies on those carbon papers. And I mean, I guess that's cheaper than printing it three times, maybe. I don't know.
it doesn't take as
I don't
long.
know.
I think that's all it comes down to. It doesn't take as
Maybe. Yeah.
long, right? And the other thing
Yeah.
was like, yeah, and I if I were doing any work with the accounting team, like you got the pink sluts bunch, right?
Right.
And the pink bunch were the last bunch because the actual analyst needed the yellow bunch and the actual finance guy needed the white bunch. And so like you end up with the pink bunch, and the pink bunch is barely legible.
Yeah, so you can't read it. You can't read it. It's horrible. Yeah, I think
And just for
that
those of you who
multi-part.
have never seen carbon paper, let's just get it out of the
Oh,
way, right?
I know.
It's paper that has, I guess it's just like what? It's like carbon in between, right? So if you write on the
Yeah.
top one, because the pressure's so deep, you can see the carbon on the second page, the third page, and occasionally the fourth page. So
Yeah.
before people like Mark made it credit card stuff online easier for all of us, you used to go to a store, they would run it through a credit card machine, and they would
All
write
the
on it and you
carbons,
would
yeah.
sign it, and they would tear the carbons out
The
of the
slips.
inside, right? And then they would give you your copy, they would keep their copy, and another copy would go to the bank. And that's how that stuff used to work. So carbon copy, I know you see it on your email now, but that was physically a thing. It's more than one copy, even though we wrote it once.
Carbon copy, that was a big deal. I think there was also that scenario when you had to print a big giant. I had to do this once at a place long, long ago, but we didn't have a printer that would actually print the thing that we needed to print and then distribute. And so we had to send it to someplace. They
Yeah, you
would
had to
print
put
it
it in the
out.
queue, and then it would
Yeah,
go to wherever that printer was, and it would print
yeah,
out, and then he'd ship it to you overnight. That's how crazy
yeah.
we
The
were.
big printer, the
Yeah, the
big
big printer.
printer. Yeah,
So
or
tell
or the
me, have you
wide
ever
printer,
seen?
right?
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever seen like so? The first commercial laser printer was who? Of course, IBM, right? Because of course they would be pushing the
Of
envelope
course.
on laser printers, and it could print 100 pages a minute. That's
100 pages a
crazy.
minute?
That's what it says.
That's
That's
yeah.
crazy. That's crazy.
Wow.
That's a lot.
It
Couldn't
is a
afford
lot.
it though. It was IBM in the 1970s. It probably cost $30,000, 30 million probably, right? Like because it was a laser printer. Like it probably
Well,
cost an arm and a leg. Yeah.
and you probably had to have the plug-in for the mainframe in order to do it,
Oh,
and
you guys, let's talk about it. The evolution from inkjet to laser printers. By the 1990s, printers got a major glow up. Enter the inkjet and the laser printer. Faster, quieter, and way sharper. Inkjet gave us color photos, or at least the cartridges that dried up overnight. And laser printers became the gold standard for speed and crisp text. But here's the thing. These were still working on the same old principle, putting ink or toner into paper. It was a refinement, not a revolution, right? They subtracted material one page at a time instead of rethinking what printing could mean, right?
yeah, definitely. So this is I have when we first met, how many years ago? Almost 30 years ago
Almost
now.
30 years ago.
Almost 30 years ago now. I had been working in it as a field person, and I worked on a lot of printers. I worked on dot matrix, worked on lasers and stuff. We did a lot of laser printers and inkjet as well. One place I worked at, we had this Epson, 700. I think it was an Epson 720 or something like that, and it printed beautiful, beautiful pictures, but it was the slowest thing in the world. It took forever and ever. But yeah, those were great, great workhorse printers, the HPs, the twos and the threes and the fours. I think I even had a certification to work on the HP 4s. Yeah,
I thought laser
right?
printing is kind of did for printing what YouTube did for cable access television. It was like it gave a production value to what you did at
Yeah,
your desk that you didn't have before. Like that paper came out looking like it was the New York Times, right? It didn't come out looking like it was, it had perforated edges and fuzzy.
yeah,
Like it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
like that anymore, right? And I thought like that to me, it was the aesthetic of it all that a laser printer gave you. And then I worked at an ad agency, and there was a machine in the ad agency, right? And it sat by itself. And you had to ask permission to use it because every print you did from this thing cost $35. But it was a GE graphics printer. And it
Oh, right.
unbelievable quality out of that
Yeah,
thing, but it was $30 a page to print it. I mean,
yeah,
the color
yeah.
was unbelievable. How shiny or matte it was on the page, you could decide. Like it was still today. Like I think back to what we were all using, which in those days was a Mac 2. Like, right? It was the Mac that was still attached inside the big rock cinder block thing. Like that's what we were using. Like in that same era, we were using machines like that. They were just cost prohibitive for normal people. And even to some extent, it was cost prohibitive to an ad agency, even because not everybody
Yeah,
could actually use it. You
yeah.
did it for like finished client work. Yeah.
They were expensive, right? I mean, an HP 2 or a 3, when they were brand new, they were probably $1,000, if not more, from what I remember. So only if you were, and I worked with the Hollywood crowd, right? Writers and directors and producers and all that. Unless you were a successful writer,
Right. Like,
you didn't
like
have a
Seth Rogen gets one now. Right.
you didn't you you didn't have a printer or laser printer of your own. You had an inkjet printer, worked on tons of those, and even the inkjet little doohickeys, the inkjet cartridges. I remember when I was at university, my wife had an HP DeskJet or something,
Mm.
whatever the inkjet line was, and she would hide the ink cartridges because uh, her roommate would print use her printer,
You don't
and
understand. Toner was like $200. Like that
yeah,
was no joke. It
those
was no
stupid little
joke.
ink those stupid little ink cartridges, they don't last very long,
They do
and
not.
then they cost you 30, 40, $50. So, and if you got to print, oh gosh, I got to print my term paper and turn it in. And of course you're a college student, and you wait to the last minute. And then all of a sudden you find out that,
You don't
nameless
have enough
roommate.
printer ink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have ink. Oh man, disaster, disaster. So,
And you don't even
but
know it till the print job is done, because that's when you go back and look at it and you realize
oh
pages
yeah,
13 to 46 are not even
yeah.
there. You're just
Yeah,
like,
or
oh,
it
come
has
on.
lines through them, it's all, wonky print.
LaserJet printers were networked LaserJet printers were a
Right.
huge security threat, like huge. You want to hack
Yeah.
somebody, hack the printer. You'll get everywhere you want to go, right? Like
Yeah.
that's how scary that stuff was. We didn't take that seriously enough back then.
Yeah, and we definitely didn't, and I do remember this quite a lot, and it's because of the cost of the printers, right? If people needed to print and you had a floor of cubicles, why would you give a printer to every single person? There's no reason to do that. So you'd set up these printers in strategic places on a floor, and you know, then people would select their printer out of their little print queue
Hmm.
thing and print away. But that meant that on these desktop networks, these flat networks, this network device was living out there in the IP world. And if you weren't careful, that IP could get exposed because of the way that the print protocols and the way that network design, would work the olden days. It's possible that those ports would be exposed in ways that you wouldn't want. And they're embedded systems in the 90s. You're thinking about how the security models would look on those embedded systems, and it's completely different
Yeah.
than it would be on a PC. They're open by design because people needed to print.
Yeah.
And how do you print? You open a port, squirt your print job at it, and away it goes. And then there's the command structure, and that you would exploit these things. in order to, take control of them.
Yeah.
And you could use them for all sorts of different things. The famous, I don't know if you want to tell the story, you want me to tell a
You can
story,
tell the
right?
story. I don't know it. I'm hearing it for the
So
first time. I didn't know this happened.
yeah, everybody knows what Rick rolling is, right? You get Rick
Never gonna
rolled.
give you,
Yeah,
never gonna
there you
let
go.
you down. Yeah.
So everybody just got Rick rolled by the Nostalgia podcast. But basically, the all five listeners, back in about 2015, 2016, just tons and tons of printers get compromised, and people send out the lyrics to the infamous Rick Astley song. So it's Rick rolling at massive scale on thousands and thousands, like over like around 100,000 unsecured printers. Yeah,
And sure, that's
100,000.
annoying and sort of funny, but what happens when they're doing it and you can't stop them? The only thing you can do is unplug your printers and walk away, right? Like I can imagine like just printing page after page after page of black.
Yes.
Just and
Yeah.
you're just they're chewing through your laser printer like crazy and it's going to break like 3 years before it's supposed to. Like there's a lot of damage you can do with that. Sometimes I
Yeah.
think I'm a criminal mastermind because like I just go right there. Like how else could I jack that up? Like good thing I have no real skill. I might actually be able to do things like that. All right, we're moving on to 3D printing, the additive revolution. You like this stuff. 3D printing,
I do like this stuff.
I feel like, but you like it. So, okay, then in the 2000s, something genuinely radical appeared, 3D printing, called also additive manufacturing. Like traditional printers that lay ink on a page, 3D printers add material layer by layer to build up an object. It's less like a printer and more like a robot glue gun with a PhD. Hey, that's a good way to put it. At first, the tech lived in labs and industrial plants, car makers, aerospace companies. They used 3D printing for prototype parts that would have taken weeks or months with traditional machining. But over time, smaller, cheaper machines landed in homes, schools, and maker spaces. Suddenly, the idea that you could design something and then just print it into existence from your desk was no longer sci-fi. And I think when I think about this, I think back to, I got to do work with a large tractor manufacturer. And their concern was when they move over to manufacturing all their parts from 3D printers, right? And the material they're using is metal, and they're going to figure out how to make this happen. But they're worried that there'll be an entire gray market, and all they need to do is be breached, right? Because now it's a file.
Yeah.
If it's a file now, and you, the manufacturer on the other side, I'm the manufacturer that owns the tractor. You're the manufacturer who makes parts for that tractor. What we're exchanging is not actually anything other than data. Right. And so when we send that data back and forth, if that's compromised in any way, you have an entire gray market that can print that just as well as anybody else, China. And they can do whatever they want with it, China. And they can collapse your whole market, China, especially if that's what you do. You make parts for the gray market. Enter China, right? So I feel like this is if you talk about risk management, and that's pretty much all I talk about all day long anyway, like that's the risk to me. Once this stuff turns digital, now I'm at the mercy of cyber attacks. I'm at the mercy of, cyber espionage and everything else in order to deflate my market or cripple it entirely.
It is a little scary. I see that kind of on a more personal level because I don't have a 3D printer. But I know lots of people who do, right? It's one of those. I don't have but I know somebody that
I
does.
know people who do.
In the hobby kind of, I'm a nerd. I build scale models. I build little Japanese robots and weird, miniature figures and all that sort of stuff and paint them and have fun with that. But it's huge, huge. And the modeling and hobbyist movements just, people because you get them so cheap.
Yeah.
Not just the SLA, but, any type of deposition based printing, you can get really pretty inexpensively and print really high quality scale models or parts or add-on things. But the thing that people worry about constantly is exactly that. Well, what happens when my file gets into the wild? Then you have a whole DRM thing. Should I institute some sort of, a limited use file system? Should I just let it go free and hope that I get compensated for the work that I do? Because these models are not they're not simple,
Yeah.
they can be quite complicated. They're very detailed. So if you think about it from an artist perspective, if that artist built something, they want to get compensated for that.
Right.
Well, and if their model is selling the file, then what happens when the file is easily available?
Right. I can
I
just
think
share it with
it's
anybody I want, and all of a sudden
I
we
can
all have
just share
Birkin
it.
bags, right? Like that's how
Yeah,
that
yeah.
works. Yeah.
I think it's really it, you have to rely on the trust of people quite a lot, right? To trust that they're going to do the right thing. I don't know, we know that that's not always the best
Trust
way.
is not a control. Let's just
Trust is
put
not
it.
a control.
Let's just put it out there. It's
Right.
not a control. Let's talk to me about some of your
Trust.
favorite use cases, though. What are some of your favorite
Yeah.
use cases of 3D printing right now?
Trust but verify.
There you go.
I think and there are these subtractive 3D printing as well, but I don't think that they're not really in the hands of consumers, so they're not usually seen as much. But there's subtractive, like you take a block and you use well, think about what do they call the stupid tables? Oh gosh, the now I totally blanked. It's the
That's okay. You can edit
woodworking.
this.
Yeah, I know.
You can blank all you want. We can sit here for
No,
10 minutes while you figure it out.
yeah. No, in woodworking, right, you have a file and you put the device on it, and it's like a router, and it grinds out
Oh,
the thing,
okay.
right? It subtracts the wood, and then you have something.
Right. Okay.
I'm totally blanking on this, but there's lots of these some sort of subtractive things: stone, metal.
Okay.
A lathe is
Yeah,
is
okay.
in a way of subtractive 3D printing, but these additive mechanisms are really cool. And like you think about it, you say, "Oh, I would never use that. Oh, I would never use that." But then you go, "Oh, wait. Oh, the handle on my drawer broke off, and I don't know where to get the new handle, thing. I design it in CAD, I print it, and I paint it to match the
It makes
you
it
know."
sound so easy. I design it in CAD. like there's whole
Well,
degrees around how to use CAD.
or you know what? Or I just buy the file from
There you
somebody,
go.
right?
You go to a catalog, you buy the file, and
That's
you
right.
download it and you
We're
print
back
it.
to the eternal catalog,
That's
right?
right.
We didn't talk about that, but I think that's a pretty neat use case. The use case of building your own parts, and some of the 3D printer manufacturers do this today. I think Bamboo or Ender does this, where in order to complete the assembly of your rig, you have to print the parts to do it.
Mm.
Which is kind of cool. I mean, why wouldn't you, right? You have the filament, you have the printer, you set it up, you run it, and you can build better supports, or you can build new types of rails or whatever. I think that's kind of cool. The one that I think it's like it's just mind blowing, right? Because you have somebody that's orbiting the Earth. They're in a space station.
Yeah.
They're flying around. Oh no, I need something that I don't have. How do you get it to them? You can't.
There's no
You can't.
Amazon. There's no
There's no
overnight to the
Amazon.
ISS.
You can't ship it to them, cheaply. So what do? You send them a file and they print it, and they've got the tool, they've got the component, they've got whatever it is that they need in that particular scenario. I think that's really cool. I think that we're going to see more of these kinds of situations and use cases where I don't have the tool, I can print the tool. Like I was working on a tilling. I have a rototiller, and I have to run on the thing, and it pulls me along and all that. I have
Mhm.
to get one connected to my tractor. I think that would be better, but I needed a particular sized socket for the thing, and the stupid tiller had 3 or 4 different sized bolts, and I was I'm missing the one socket for the right size for that. I'd be like, I wish I could just print that, and then I would be ready to go. Certainly, some of the materials probably wouldn't withstand the torque that you would need, but if you start looking at some of the technologies that are out there, it's not just plastics and resin. You're starting to be able to print liquid metal, right? Apple has they bought a company to do printing with metal. There's a stone like these composite stone.
Funny you should say that
Yeah.
because I have 3D printed parts
Oh,
from composite stone in my mouth.
and your mouth.
Right. So I had bridge work and replacement work done. So they've reconstructed my bottom bite with a bunch of implants and a bunch of different partials. But the crazy thing was they first they have to pull the teeth and then they have to put in the implants. And then once that's all done, and that's hard because you have to eat soft food for like 6 weeks. But once it's all done and it's healed, they're ready to go in and do that stuff. So they have you come in, they expose, because your gums grow over those things, they expose it all. And then they use LiDAR. And you're using the LiDAR in your mouth to map all the teeth on the top and all the space on the bottom and where those hooks are that they're going to put everything in. And so when you get your 3D printed teeth back, there's no reason to shape them because the bottom teeth match the top teeth because that's how it was printed. So you know how you used to do that? They used to do like a thing and they would stick it on there and then it would be like tap, 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 scrape, 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 tap, 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 scrape. No, it fit perfectly. It was the craziest thing. And to know that they were 3D printed, they just send off the file. It literally, they email a file to the lab sends them the stuff back and they email the file back and say, this is what we did. So all the teeth I have on my bottom, with the exception of the four in the front, all of them 3D printed.
Well, they look beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And I can chew meat. So that's all that counts. I don't choke in hotel rooms on steaks anymore. It's just an upside for Renee. She's not going to die choking while alone. I'm like, yeah, it's good.
Well, in this concept, of printing from different materials isn't new. I think this is something that's been around for a while, but it's just going to get better and better. And
when you can LiDAR scan someone's mouth, I think we've come a long way. We've come a long way, right?
Did you see? So I just got my wife the AirPods because she was going to the gym and she didn't want to wear the over the ear thing. And I don't know what it does, but it asks you to scan you turn your head and it scans your ear so that it
does
knows
a lot of crazy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it does some really, really crazy stuff. But I think that kind of product, that to me is the home use case. I use my phone because the iPhone has LiDAR in it now.
Mm-hmm.
I use my phone to get really, detailed scans of whatever it is. I, buy an AR, something in the AR catalog that I just looked at, and then print away, and there it is. But we're getting to the future. Let's go. Let's keep where we're at.
No, let's talk about the future. From plastic to resin. So how did we get to the from the ear splitting clatter of dot matrix ribbons to the near silent resin printers? Well, let's talk materials, shall we?
Yeah.
Early 3D printers used mostly plastic filaments like PLA or ABS, basically spools of plastic fed into a heated nozzle, which then drew layers like a robotic hot glue gun. Even, you know what? You'll even see like 3D printing pens. They're doing the same thing. Yeah. It's just this thing that's heating up and you're stacking it to create something, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, except that you're doing it with a file, right? Using a process called stereolithography. Oh, you see how I got that? I didn't even stumble. SLA, lasers and projectors, cure liquid resin, one layer at a time. The result, smooth, whisper quiet prints with insane levels of detail. I've seen this done lately on Instagram and stuff where people are making handbags, like solid handbags. Like they're not meant to be cushy or anything like that. And they're doing it with resin printers and they're doing it with like these. Yeah, it's crazy. They'll be like, it'll look like this big egg and there'll be a thing in the middle that like where you can stick your arm in and carry it, and the handles are so smooth and beautiful and the edges are so pretty and the outside is so smooth. You're like, damn it, man, I can't believe that's plastic. And then they sell them. Unbelievable. Yeah. They're handbags. I thought, you know what, if I were going to the Oscars, I'd carry that. It looked unbelievable and it just happened to be plastic and printed. I don't see a problem with that. So yeah, there's insane stuff going on out there, and SD folks are picking it up just as much as anybody else.
Wow. Yeah. Well, the materials out there in the SLA, the stereolithography space, there's a couple of different technologies, the how the light moves and all that stuff. Don't need to go into that, but the advancements that I see recently are in the types of resins that are being used. Some of them, are more brittle right? They're harder. Some of them are more rubberized, actually contain, polymers and things that are more rubbery. So they have more flex and bend
Hmm.
in that. And, the variety of different types of resins that are used for different use cases, right? Like I wouldn't use a super hard, super brittle resin for your handbag. I would use something that has a little bit of give, to manage impacts and things like that. And it's really interesting to see how that stuff is happening. I think that use case around the deposition, SLA resin printers is I'm not going to say it's limited because it's really like what can your brain imagine to design in 3D in CAD and then you can print it.
Mm.
But the it's it's a component approach, right? I have to build a component to marry it with some other component, right? If I want to print something in total plastic, that's totally fine.
Hmm.
But if I wanted something with a leather strap or, metal pins or, you know, wooden this or whatever, that's that's an integration process for me, which is how products are made anyways. But if you think about as a home consumer, I buy a kit, I hit the print, I put it together, and like you said, I've got, a brand new whatever bag in okay, there you go.
It can't be that bad of an idea, right? So in the future, like we worried about not having, like, what's the future like for manufacturers? Like in your mind, like the future of like Toyota and its parts manufacturers. I mean, does this just become a data job and now it's not full warehouses full of stuff. It's just files. Lots and
Data
lots and
centers.
lots of files.
Yeah, yeah. I think somebody like a Toyota, right? You talked about a particular tractor manufacturer, right? These kinds of players, DRM does matter. Being secure with the files, it does matter. And if they aren't careful, right, they introduce gray market into the process. And
But
that's
one
not,
seriously does not exist. Like
yeah,
there should be
exactly.
no gray market for that. If you need a
No,
part from one of those providers, you call that provider and
yeah,
you get that part. That you don't
yeah, yeah,
call, I don't know, Pep Boys and all of a sudden you have that
yeah.
part, right?
Well, and, Toyota doesn't, I won't say they don't, but Toyota, all the car manufacturers, they use OEMs, right, to produce whatever it is that they are producing.
Well, yeah, because
And
you
so,
build cars in the country you sell them at, right? So like
yeah,
that
yeah,
makes
yeah.
perfect sense to me,
Yeah.
right?
But it could get tricky, right? Like you could really destroy an OEM supply chain market if you're not careful, right? And if all of a sudden, especially for
Hmm.
plastic parts right now, you could easily replicate in a 3D printed environment in a home printer style. So if you build a printer farm, you have a small the medium sized parts, you could absolutely, if you had a file, you could decimate that stuff. I mean, most of that stuff is done in injection molding today rather than 3D printed, but with the quality of the printing going up and things like on demand, right? You can't do injection molding on demand. Like you can, but that's it's a lot of work, right? You
Hmm.
got to pull the dies off, clean them,
Hmm.
change the assembly line, change the plastics. With a printer, it's like, oh, that's the design print now, and it's instantly available. So on demand, I think is where that's going. But it still becomes a DRM issue, a cybersecurity issue, supply chain issues. Like, what do you do if all of a sudden the most common plastic parts that one OEM totally depended upon, that was their number one selling product, and all of a sudden nobody needs to buy it anymore.
Right? That's it, right? Or someone messes with it and now it's not exactly the right part and then it breaks because someone, you know what I mean? Like
Well,
there's again, I'm a criminal mastermind and I just want to break stuff no matter what. You can keep your data. I'm just going to break it and put it back, right? Like that's not okay. It's not okay either. Yeah, and I think like especially the tractor company that we're talking about, they do business in mines in Africa, right?
Yeah.
If one of those like those big dump trucks, like one of those things in the size of a building, like breaks, like you really do have to wait a while for a part, right? Like you do have to, and like
Yeah.
now they can say, well, no, actually, we'll ship you that part, you print it, we'll ship you the file, you print it, and we're good to go. Like that's great, except that file now exists somewhere in a mine in Africa. Like you've
Yeah.
got to really think
Yeah.
about that stuff, right? All right,
Yeah.
so you're a hobbyist, I'm a hobbyist. We do not have the same hobbies, which is good
No.
because I can't imagine doing models. I just can't. The glue alone would be too much for me. I would have stuff stuck to my eyebrows. It'd be all in my face. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do
Yeah,
it.
but you use a hot glue gun, I'm sure, right?
I don't. But I do a lot of candle making, but I don't use I work with
I
hot
guess
wax, right? But I don't
yeah,
not hot
wax,
glue
yeah.
guns. Yeah, no, and then I crochet a lot. So it's yeah,
Uh,
I'm a textile artist. There, how you like that?
I thought with the candles that there would like when you're putting components together, but I guess it's just wax.
No, it's just wax.
So
You
you just
melt it on a
heat
hot
them.
plate a little
Yeah.
bit and stick it to something, and
Yeah.
then it
There
dries.
you go.
If anything, you're using you cool it with that stuff in the can that makes it really cool really fast. The canned
Yeah.
air. That's how you get it to get really solid really fast. But yeah, no,
Uh
it's all
uh
wax, and then certain wax it takes certain time. I could talk about this forever, but certain wax takes certain points at which
yeah.
they melt, and then some of them get bubbles, some of them don't. There's whole kinds of stuff in there. But no, I don't use any of that. But I do work in wax, and there is a way to build 3D stuff in wax with a wick that'll burn all the way around
Yes.
the outside of it. That
Oh,
looks
that's cool. I've seen that. That
yeah, I
is
have
really
to
cool.
figure out how to do it in a pastry bag, and then I'm off and running. I'm going to figure it out.
Uh that would
All
be
right.
cool.
So when consumer grade 3D printers hit the market, hobbyists went nuts. For a few $100, you could suddenly print toys, tools, cosplay armor, you name it. I remember people doing Star Wars a lot. So stormtrooper helmets, you could see those a lot.
Right?
Yeah, you would see a lot of people 3D printing their Darth Vader helmet, front and back. It was a helmet, right?
Sure, yeah.
I saw a lot of that going on the last few years. Makers turned their garages into mini factories, but it didn't stop at hobbies. Medicine jumped on board. Surgeons use 3D printing for custom prosthetics, dental implants. I have those. Even
Yeah.
scaffolds for bioprinting tissue, right? Architects can now print scale models of buildings or entire walls. The power goes from idea to object has never been more accessible. Someone like me could now have an idea about what I would want my house to look like, do a 3D rendering, take it to a contractor and have them laugh at me out loud. Like I can do that now. I can do that now.
What's that? What's that page?
Yeah,
McMansion hell, right?
McMansion Hell. Is it still
Yeah.
out there? Because it's really good. If you guys have never seen it, audience, if you're listening, if you've never gone to McMansion Hell, go check it out. She goes and finds she's an architecture major. She goes and finds the worst houses and explains to you why they're so bad.
Yeah. Well,
And
you
she
could
did
print
Betsy
out.
DeVos's house once. It's bad.
Oh, yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
bet.
it's sad.
Whatever. Yeah, now you can print out whatever you're, but you just want to live in a trailer. You don't want to live in a McMansion. You want to live in a trailer. So,
I want to print a
drive it
tiny
around.
home and move right on
Yeah.
in.
Well, look, that's a use case, I think, right there. Like, what's the scenario for printing a tiny home,
Or can I
right?
print my own RV? Like there's a ton of stuff you could do with
Yeah.
that. My own travel van. Can I
Yeah.
3D print it? Why not, right?
As the materials get better, the big limitation right now is that materials they're brittle or they're not very load bearing, right? But it's their components. Like, what happens if you buy a frame and then print all the components to build onto the frame,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And this is just an extension of the Sears house in
Yeah.
in a crate in a shipping container, right?
Yep.
They're going to give you the plans, they'll give you the materials, and then you go and you build it. And I think that's where this and it may not be at scale of houses, but it might be the scale of furniture. We've seen 3D printed furniture. We've seen 3D printed printers, seen 3D printed componentry, all of this stuff. So I think it's going to get bigger. I think certainly the medicine use case, that's a pretty interesting one.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, this you mentioned the hobbyist stuff. That's just crazy. I mean, the very first thing that I thought about for buying a 3D printer for was when one of the kids that was building, my art student she had to build a carousel, or she decided to build a carousel
Mm.
and a small, tiny carousel, and she was putting some surreal animals on it, and she wanted to actually move. And she designed the gearing system in Fusion 360 and everything, but we didn't have a 3D printer to print. I was like, well, that's like the use case right there. You just built the gears in CAD.
Yeah.
What do you do next? And instead I helped her build it out of plastic, just sheets of
Yeah.
plastic and stuff. But like that would have been the perfect use case. Literally, oh, I just designed it in CAD. I'm gonna,
I'm gonna hit
print
print.
it and go. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
there you go.
right.
For me, I don't know. I'm just not there yet. I don't want the smell
Oh,
and the
so if
mess.
you so other than helping the artistic child, like there's no other reason for you to have one of those? Like there's just no reason you
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, you know what? You probably find use cases for it and stuff, but like,
I'd be
I
making
don't
all
know.
kinds every order of
What
craziness.
would you make?
I would well, I'd start with podcast merch. I'd make nerdy podcast merch. So if you happen to be a 3D printer manufacturer out there and you want someone to test drive that and talk about it later on a podcast, reach out. Mark, what's our email address? Where can you reach out to us at?
nostalgicnerdspodcast@gmail.com.
If you would like to send me one, I'd like to take it and talk about it at length. I would want to make jewelry, actually. That would be my thing. I would be want to making earrings. I'd want to make bracelets. I'd want to make beads for necklaces. I'd want to string them all. Yeah, I would have a really good time with just making, 3D printed jewelry. Just tons.
Okay.
I'd have fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
3D printed jewelry is like, not only do people do 3D printed jewelry, but jewelers use 3D printers to build casts and molds for
To
jewelry.
make jewelry. Yeah.
To make jewelry. Yeah. So they'll build their master, and then that master, then they'll cast and then go through the process. There's material that's, the lost wax method, right?
Yeah.
You could
You
pour
put
and
it in
it'll,
there. Yeah. And then you
right.
pour the metal in and it takes up the space that the wax
Yeah.
was in, but
Right.
the stuff around it keeps it into place, and then they pull it apart and bam, it's done. So there's no forging it really, and then they just polish it up really good. Yeah, I mean that's how
you can print that wax essentially for the lost wax.
Yeah,
I mean that stuff's really cool. And I saw this surprisingly in the mall. Every single mall jewelry place that did custom jewelry had a 3D printer right there in the shop in the mall.
That's crazy.
And I was like, wow, man, that's nuts. Like they're doing production right there in the mall.
Well, and they used to have to, design that and then design it in the wax. So you had to be good at working with wax too. Like that's amazing right there. Like that opens that kind of hobby up to somebody like me. Like I could go forge sterling silver jewelry now because I don't have to have any skill at all. I just need a 3D printer and some wax.
Yeah,
so let's talk about the big leagues of 3D printing. So industrial 3D printing, the biggest impact is in heavy industry, right? Aerospace companies are printing jet engine parts. It's kind of scary. Automotive plants are making complex metal components that used to take entire supply chains to produce. And construction firms are literally printing houses with concrete-based materials, reducing waste and slashing costs. So we are using this in the industrial space, right? And it makes sense for all those use cases. And it makes sense that you could 3D print a house. But just so we're clear, like it is just concrete being laid on top of concrete in a design that's being driven by software, right? That's all it's doing.
Yeah.
It's literally working like a 3D printer, only it's doing it with concrete. Hey, by the way, have you ever seen, do they put rebar into that, or is it just concrete layered on concrete and it's kind of like a wall? Is that how they do it? I don't know if I've ever seen rebar in that stuff.
I've never seen, I can't say that I've seen the whole process. I've watched lots of videos on that in looking at this topic, but I've not seen what the reinforcement technique is.
Yeah.
There has to be something, and I think there's, the clips and videos and stuff you see probably aren't the complete process, but I would imagine they're using glass fiber, PVC puff fiber, all of that stuff that gets printed probably has a material in it that helps with rigidity and strength. They've got to be using some other type of reinforcement as well. I can't imagine they're not, but I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe the concrete they're using is just so great that it doesn't. But it doesn't. I don't know.
So do we use it here in the
There's
United
has to be
States?
something.
Are y'all using it there in the UK, or is this something that just,
I,
is
I
still?
haven't
I haven't seen
I
any
haven't
here.
seen I haven't seen any 3D printed places here yet, but I know in the States I've seen some Walmart buildings that have been using it. I have seen some residential properties that have used
Hmm.
it. So I know that they do exist. And if they're in the States, I mean with concrete you have to do reinforcement.
Right.
So I'm sure they're using some sort of reinforcement structure around that. So the 3D printing rigs I'm sure have ways to do that. But it's the same concept as these filament printers. You have a rig and the rig moves and it draws a line and the
And
line
it
has a
keeps.
thickness and it
Yeah.
just keeps stacking and you just stack and stack and stack. The biggest 3D printed office building was completed in 2019. It's in Dubai. So there are some scaled applications there. I think certainly for warehouses and square buildings and simple forms. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it's fast, it's easy, it's cheap. It's kind of like that expanding foam stuff. I don't know if you ever saw that stuff. That
I've
was
seen
pretty
that.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They build the form, they mix the foam, they drop it in, and it just goes whoop,
Yep. Yep.
fills up the form. But you can't do super complicated structures that way. And then you've got some structural
Yeah,
things you got to think
30-story
about and all that.
buildings. Like I could see how if you put in the rebar and you build in the
Yeah,
structure, then
sure.
just filling it all in with that is just fine. It would work the same way, right? And it has to be it's like better than just pouring it in sections, right? It obviously must be better than that. Otherwise they would still be pouring it in sections, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So okay, let's look ahead into the future of 3D printing. So what's next? Well, grossly enough, multi-material printing, where one machine can combine metals, plastic, and
Yeah.
even living cells into a single build. Researchers are pushing toward printing organs, a holy grail of medicine. Imagine bypassing transplant wait lists by printing a kidney on demand. I mean, that is the holy grail, right? Like that, like if we could do that, we would never have an organ shortage again. We could start with some stem cells, we can turn them into kidney cells, and bam, we grow a kidney.
Yeah. Well, have you seen the artificial meat companies? They
Yeah,
basically print this slurry of meat.
that
Yeah.
turns into something that seems like meat. Yeah, I have seen that. It's
Yeah.
called a McRib, and I love them. They're really good. I think you
I,
should eat a lot of them.
I know you love the McRib, but yeah.
Yoga mats never tasted so good. That's how I look at that.
Well, I bet you companies like McDonald's, they've got to be thinking about that, right?
Right, right. 3D
They
print a
have to be thinking
sandwich.
about.
Yeah.
I mean, the McRib is it if it's not already 3D printed, I mean,
It is a ripe candidate for it, right? Because it's
it's
got that
definitely
stupid little
right.
rib ridges in it. Like it might have bones in it,
Yeah,
but it really doesn't. Yeah, you're right.
yeah.
It's perfect for that. Can't do that at Arby's. You can only do that with a McRib. I'm just going to
No,
put it out
no,
there. Yeah.
yeah. The Arby's gray marbled beef would be
Right?
more
Right?
complicated than the McRib.
It
Yeah,
would
or a
be.
McNugget. I mean,
If you can grow a kidney, you can grow a big nugget. I'm just going to put it out there. You could probably do it.
absolutely, absolutely.
We're
I
also
I
headed
I
to
totally
space.
agree.
Astronauts on Mars won't wait for Amazon Prime deliveries from Earth as much as Jeff Bezos would love for them to do that. They'll just
Yeah,
print what they need, from tools to replacement spacecraft parts. It's a Star Trek's replicator, like inching into reality. And I think that's totally true. We're living Star Trek, dude. It's Star Trek all over
I
again.
so we talked about volumetric printing right before we started recording, and this feels like the replicator, right? This volumetric printing, you've got this vat of material, liquid material vat, and you use a laser array to shine lasers, or spread your lasers into this vat. And because of the way that the lasers are arranged and the way that things are heated, it goes from there's nothing there to all of a sudden instantly there's something, because the laser matrix essentially cures the resin inside this volumetric container instantly. That's That's some cool stuff right there. That is
I
really
put that
cool.
right up there with like theoretical physics for me, because it's like I don't understand theoretical physics either, and I don't understand how a vat, when you throw some stuff at it, it heats up in the right places and it heats up a lot of like if you want an empty space in that part that you're building, you want an empty space in it. The laser just gets really hot in there. That stuff just evaporates and bam, it's square with a hole in the middle, and you're like, what in the hell just happened?
Yeah.
Like it really is amazing technology, but dude, I don't understand how any of it works. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. Yeah.
I get it, the concept, but like I don't get how, these lasers get the depth, perfectly right, and
It's temperature, right? Because it's evaporating
yeah,
whatever that stuff is, and it's leaving behind what it
yes,
wants it to look like, right? It's actually
yeah,
it's doing the negative stuff. It's taking stuff out, right? And it's saying, here's
yeah,
what's left, and this is what you told me you wanted, and here's what's left. I think because I saw when I looked it up, because we talked about it before we got on here, and I looked it up in a research paper, and it showed you kind of what the model looks like, which is just a file.
yeah,
Then it showed you what it was doing inside that vat. And inside that vat, like if you looked at what it started with and what it ended up with, the sections if you looked at it with thermal, the sections that were hottest were the ones that weren't there when it was done, right?
yeah.
So like it evaporates it. Like I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that thing. I wouldn't want to know anything about it. Seems like super dangerous to me. I don't know.
Yeah,
But if it could make a kidney, I'd be all for it. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah.
I mean, certainly the volumetric stuff is resin based now, but I've got to figure that just like with other resin-based technologies, they're going to experiment with the types of resins and the material properties of that. I think that's really cool. But that Star Trek replicator is. I mean, when did Next Generation show? What was that? Because the first SLA printer shows up in 1984. So, which comes first, right? Star Trek Replicator and Star Trek Next Generation, or the 3D printer?
Oh, that's a good
Yeah, I don't know.
question.
I'd have to look that up.
I thought Next Generations was, I mean, we would watch that I didn't. I was forced to when we were cooking.com. So what is that, 1998?
Yeah, so it had to be
99?
later, right? So 3D
Yeah.
printers show up, but I think that's a kind of interesting scenario. Certainly, somebody well, did they have replicators in the 60s show? I don't
Yeah, they
know.
did. Remember, they would just go in and like order food and it would be there, or they just like you did have a replicator, right? You
Yeah,
did in the very first one, you did, and it seemed
yeah,
crazy in the 60s. Like that's a crazy thought, but
it is a crazy thought.
to think that we sit here now saying there's a real possibility with the right kind of biotechnical engineering, we can grow a kidney, and that would be a relief to the people who go through dialysis or have chronic kidney disease or hereditary kidney disease. People die in their 40s and 50s because of that. If we could
Yeah,
fix
no,
that would be amazing. And then other people don't have to walk around with one less kidney. And you don't have to wait for, there is no more waiting list, right? There's no need to
yeah,
do that. If you don't reject it, there's no need to do another one. So we're good, right?
yeah.
Like, and you can grow it yourself from your own tissue, from your other kidney, right? Like, I don't see why any of that's bad. We
No,
should be working toward that.
I think we should definitely be working towards that. Like maybe printing eyes, somebody couldn't
Wow.
see,
At least a better
you print an
lens.
eye.
So you can
Yeah, or a better
implant
lens.
it into my eye, right?
Well,
Yeah.
okay, so I have seen some research papers that talk about printing lenses, because you know how people will donate, obviously after they die,
After they're died,
they'll
yeah. Live organ
they'll
donation where they
donate.
chase you down and pull out your eyeballs. Like,
Yeah.
you donated this. Well, not yet. I didn't mean right now. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
they take out your cornea or they take out your
Yeah,
lens. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
take out the lens and then put it in somebody else's eye. I
Yeah.
mean, that stuff's real. If you think about printing a new lens for somebody, I mean, I know I've seen the research on that. That's pretty cool.
That's
That's pretty cool
amazing.
stuff.
So yeah, I think,
Yeah.
but all technology has a downside. But like right now, I feel like if you could, and I guess 3D print an organ probably isn't the right way to talk about that. If you could
No.
create that from artificial means into an organic thing, like that's an amazing thing. And then pretty soon we're printing potatoes, and then we don't need to grow food. From the clattering ribbons of dot matrix printers to the whisper quiet precision of resin-based 3D printing, the journey's been nothing short of incredible. additive manufacturing hasn't just improved printing, it's redefined it entirely. So, Marc, thanks for this. This was fun. Thanks for tuning into the Nostalgic Nerds podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and hit us up on social media. We want to know, do you remember using a dot matrix printer? Seriously, come commiserate with us because we remember. And what's the coolest or weirdest thing you've ever seen done in 3D printed? So drop us a note and we'll share the favorites on our next episode. Thanks, Marc.
All right, thanks.